Hello everyone, welcome to AI Anytime channel. In today's video, we are going to develop a Streamlit application that will help you search and retrieve information from websites. Okay, so we are going to use Gen AI framework, Langchain in this case, and we will use one of its tool that will help you connect with a website and then retrieve the information from that website, and then we pass those information to a large language model. In this case it's going to be GPT 3.5. Okay, and then we'll retrieve some sort of information based on our query. That's what we are going to develop in this video. So recently there has been a rise in the OpenAI functions, because if you see the existing large language models even in open source and also the closed source models, they are very generic in terms of their training corpus. So these LLMs have been trained on data which is available on the internet. That can be Twitter, Reddit, and Wikipedia, and there are other sources as well. Now how we can build a domain specific application with help of generative AI models in general, right? So that's where you need different functions that will connect with your sub models and retrieve the information based on your persona, or mainly a personalized chatbot or a personalized question answering tool. And that's where OpenAI functions and Langchain tools or agents comes in play to help you develop those sort of applications where you have to interact with third party APIs or application and retrieve some data from there and pass it to a language model to retrieve the information for you, right? Or basically inference the model based on the prompt that you are making to retrieve some kind of information. That's what we are going to develop in this video, guys. That how we can use Langchain and this large language model that will basically help you crawl the web as well, the websites, and get the information from there and pass it to a language model. Okay, so we are going to use request module to connect with the website and then basically scrap the data in the hood, right? And then give it to Langchain to do the text pre-processing, and then we give it to GPT 3.5 through a tool that will help you inference that. So let's jump into build that application. So you can see currently I'm in this folder which says website search. Okay, so in this folder I'm just going to open this in terminal. I think I already have opening. I'll just come here in this terminal, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate my virtual environment. Okay, so I'm using Anaconda, so I'm just going to do conda activate, and I'm going to activate my Langchain VNB where I have installed Langchain. The reason is because I'm using an Ubuntu machine, and by default Ubuntu has 3.7 when we install Anaconda, but Langchain might probably not work with that version of Python, so we have to upgrade that, and that's why I've created an environment with Python 3.10, and that's what Langchain environment is. And I'm already in VS Code, so I'll just open my VS Code here. So in the VS Code you can see these are the requirements: Langchain, OpenAI, Trafila, Tuara, Streamlit, and Python.env. We don't need Trafila, Tuara. I'll tell you the reason that why I'm not using this. So there are many videos which is available on YouTube when it comes to chat with your website or retrieve the information from a website and a web URL, right? But they all are like either in Google Colab or mainly through a microservice, right? But in this video I want to create a Streamlit application where end user can input the URL and it will generate the responses for your query on the fly. Okay, and for that Trafila Tuara is not a right package to basically scrap the data and then give it to a language model. It doesn't work with Streamlit due to it's very bad in multi-threading, okay, the library. That's why I'm going to use request module, okay, in this to perform that task. I'll explain you when I'm writing the code and what I mean by that. Okay, so let me just create an app.py in this case, and these are the requirements. We are going to rely on OpenAI as a closed source language model in this case, closed source model provider in this case. Okay, and we are going to use GPT 3.5 as a large language model, okay, in this video. And you can see I have a .env which contains the OpenAI API keys. Okay, so if you don't have a key, you have to go to OpenAI platform to get the key there. Okay, and I have an app.py where I'll write all my Python code. Okay, so I'll first import Streamlit as st because we are going to develop a Streamlit application. I'm just going to copy this few of the code from my previous video repositories I'll just come on AI anytime GitHub repository. I'll go on repositories, and inside that I will look for something called chat with PDF chatbot, which is my previous video where I've created a chatbot uh, using open source stack, no OpenAI. Okay, so I'm just gonna copy a few of the code snippet from there just to save some time on the Streamlit thingy there. Okay, so I'll just copy a couple of markdown lines, just to accelerate this coding development here, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to paste. Okay, so ht.markdown, and this also ht.markdown. It says chat with your PDF. I'll just change it to for example, info retrieval. So we're going to retrieve some kind of information, right, from a website. So info retrieval from website. Okay, and it's not a document anymore, so I'm just going to remove that. And for now, let's keep this as green. So I'm just going to do green here because green works well for both white and not white and black background. In this case it will be dark and light background. Okay, so let me just also make this maybe green. Okay, this will be green here as well. This looks nice, so I'm not going to upload your PDF. This will be enter your URL. That's basically the website. Let me do an Alt G so I can see it. Yes. And now what I'm going to do is let's run this and see what we are getting here, guys. So I'm just going to come on the terminal. I'm just going to run streamlit run app.py, and when I run it, you can see I get a kind of a header, right? Info retrieval from website, built by AI anytime with love, and enter your URL. Let me just change these settings to dark here just to show you that dark also, even on dark it will look good, and you can see it looks good on dark as well. I'll prefer let me just do in the setting, I'll prefer light for now. Enter your URL, and now next is let's import the libraries that we need. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I need URL lib parse. So URL lib.parse, because we have to parse that URL, right? So we need URL library to parse that, right? So I'm just going to do import URL parse, which is the right suggestion or recommendation by tab 9. So I'm using tab 9 as a code intelligence or assistant, right? And then now what I'm going to do is let's import OS for now. So import OS, and then from Langchain. So from Langchain.chat models, what are the chat models that we're going to use is chat models, import chat OpenAI. Okay, so chat OpenAI. Okay, now chat OpenAI, we also need .env thingy here. So from .env, basically it's a python.env. Okay, when we install it. So if you see my requirements.txt, it's python -.env. Okay, it's very easy. So from .env import load.env. So let me just do load.env. This looks good. We need OpenAI to interact with the OpenAI APIs over there. Import OpenAI. Now the next thing is few of the Langchain thingy. So from Langchain dot chains dot qa with sources, QA with sources loading, import load QA with source. We also need, it's good to have source, load QA with source, load QA with source. I think it's not source, I think it's sources underscore chain, load QA with sources chain. And then we also need base combined document chain. So let me just do base combined documents chain. Okay, this looks nice. So the Langchain.chains QA underscore with sources loading import load. This looks nice. Okay, so QA, now this is done. So now the next thing is from Langchain.tool.base, not tool, I think it's tools.base, import base tool. This is for the inbuilt class within the Langchain tool that we are going to use. I will explain when I'm writing that class. So from Langchain.tools.base import base tool. we need recursive character text splitter. So from Langchain dot text splitter, I don't need text splitter. I focus more on recursive text splitter, which helps me better control on the unstructured data. So recursive character text splitter. Yeah, this looks nice. It was suggesting me some earlier. Text splitter. Anyway, recursive character text splitter. This is okay. From Langchain.text splitter. Now what we need is, let's have Pydantic. So if you don't know Pydantic, if you have worked with Fast API probably or the microservices, you will know Pydantic is used for validating the data. So the data validation, you define some structure of your data, like the data type. You can validate that with Pydantic, and that's what I'm going to use in this case. So from Pydantic import field, this looks nice. Okay, from Pydantic import field, and let's import, I think I've already imported OS. Let's import async, because there's be an async function as well within that class we're going to write. That's called a run. So import async, and we're gonna it's not async, it's async IO, probably async IO. And then what next is okay, let's keep import async IO for now. Okay, and then we also need from Langchain. So from Langchain, what I'm gonna do is Langchain dot doc store, yes, doc store dot document import document. This is okay. And then our last thing is requests. So import request. So these are the imports. And so what I'm gonna do here is in the Streamlit thingy, guys, at least for the Streamlit, we'll have either, we will not have two columns maybe, for example. So let's do one thing. Okay, have an input URL. So I'm going to do input URL, and this would be ht dot text input, not text area, because we just need an input, right? So let's do ht dot text input, and this goes into your URL over here. You can do a validation there, or key, key that to have the input URL. Input URL is done. Now let's check that there should be a value inside the input URL, then the code should get executed. So if length of input URL greater than 0, if you have a file that's called, then you can do is not none, but it's not a file, it's a value, that value that we are going to put inside this input URL. Okay, so if length of that input URL is greater than 0, then rest of the code should get executed. Okay, so what next we're gonna do is, let's have an URL name, and this URL name is, for now I'll just do pass here. Let's do a pass and see. I'm just gonna come over here and rerun. It says no module Langchain dot change QA with sources loading. Let's see that, guys. Okay, why I'm getting this error. So from Langchain dot change dot QA with sources loading. So from Langchain dot change dot QA with sources loading, import load underscore QA with sources underscore chain. This is right, base combine documents chain. So from Langchain dot change dot QA with sources loading. Let me see on the documentation. So I'm just gonna come on the documentation here. Langchain, and let's see if I'm getting anything here. Web-based loader, this is okay. Going deeper. Okay, retrieval, SV retriever, getting started. No, not this, not required. Let me check Langchain QA with sources and retriever. Anyway, Langchain dot change. So on the error is app.streamlit from Langchain dot change dot QA with sources dot loading. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, this should be sources dot loading, not underscore there. Okay, now if I do a rerun, yeah, here we go. That was good. So keyword resources. Now if you see the interface here, let me just, we don't need it. Okay, so I'll just minimize this. Now here we have an enter your URL option, so you can enter your URL, and I will use this URL, and I've tested it out because it works. It works for most of the URL, but there will be few of the websites that you cannot scrap it, probably because they on their JavaScript side they would have, you know, some dynamic classes or something. It's very difficult to kind of scrap, but most of the website you will be able to scrap and give it to a language model to infer it, right, whatever query that you ask. So this is enter your URL. Now let's write a function. Okay, so I want to write a function that will basically give us the URL name, that what the URL that we are entering, right? So let's define a function called, you know, define get underscore URL name, for example, and this should have the URL, and what I'm going to do here is get underscore URL. So let's do a parsed URL. That's why I have used URL lib.parse. So parsed URL is URL parse URL, and then just return that. Okay, so return parsed URL dot net, yes, netlock, correct. And then this, let's bind this to a decorator, because every time if you are not changing the URL in the same runtime, then you know we should cache this resource, right? So it should not load every time, and that's what Streamlit provides there to ht.cache resources. So what I'm going to do here is ht.cache resource. So let me do that, guys. ht.cache resource, and this looks okay. ht.cache resource, and this is fine. So let me just do here, and if length input URL greater than 0. Now what I'm going to do here is, maybe I can have the URL name. So URL name equals, let's call this get URL name, and this get URL name nothing but input URL. That's the parameter that we are going to pass. Now we have the URL name. So what I'm going to do here, ht.info maybe, and your URL is, okay, let's me use this, maybe your URL is something like this. Okay, your URL is this, ht.write, and I'm just going to use this URL name here. Okay, now let's go back to rerun. I'll just do a rerun here. I'll just copy this URL from this, and let's paste it over here. So I'll just paste this, and now you can see that I get my URL. Okay, so this is my URL. So I'm able to retrieve the URL name from that function. Now let's move to the Streamlit function that we are going to write, the class of OpenAI function with the Langchain help, right? So let's do that. So the first thing that I'm going to do in this is to define a load.env. So we need load.env because we have to get the OpenAI API key that I have stored in this env file. Now what I'm going to do here is, I'm just going to do os.envar. This will be get env this side, and this will be OpenAI underscore API key, and this path will also be OpenAI underscore API underscore key. This is nice. And now what I'm going to do here is OpenAI os dot get env. Fantastic. So I think this is what we need. Okay, so now we will load the OpenAI API key from that env file. Now this function is okay. So let's write one more function for recursive character text splitter. So let's write that function, guys. So define underscore get text splitter. So I'm just going to use this get text splitter, and this is fine. And inside this function, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use return recursive character text splitter, and inside this I'll pass the parameters that I have to pass, right? So what I'm going to pass here is, the first thing is the chunk size. So I'll keep a smaller chunk size to save time here. So I'm just going to do chunk size chunk underscore size, which is nothing but 5. Let's keep 500 by now. And then we have chunk overlap. Okay, so let's have a smaller overlap of 20. And then let's also have length function. So it should be length function, excuse me, sorry, length function equals length, len. That's it, we don't need anything else here, guys. So this is what I want to do. So this is the function that we are going to use in our class now that we are going to write. So you're going to define a class that comes default, in Langchain. So that's not my code, but I have made changes because I'm not using this particular library. If you see like Tuara, okay, I don't know how they pronunciate it. You can see Python and command line tool to gather text on the web crawling, scraping. That's what we are doing in this video, guys, right? We are connecting with this website. So we'll connect with request. So we'll use request to take this URL and get all this content that you see, text from there, and then give it to a chain, a Langchain chain that will have a large language model. Okay, basically an OpenAI function to define a name and description, and based on the prompt we'll try to generate some kind of response. It's a question answering tool again, guys, to be honest. Okay, you're going to have your questions that you want to retrieve the information in a website. Okay, so I'm not using this library called Tuara. Most of the OpenAI functions that currently available on the GitHub, or there are so many videos on YouTube as well, they're using Tuara, which I was finding a lot of difficulties to work with when I was working with Streamlit application. So I'm not going to use this. But if you are using this, and if you have found a way that you can use Tuara with Streamlit, please let me know in the comment box, and please reach out to me because I am also looking at something that might help. Okay, so I'm not use this, I'm going to use request. So let's do that. Okay, so I'm just going to come back here. Let's define a class, and this class is nothing but web or let me take this class. I already have this class on my GitHub repository, so I'm just going to go here in this GitHub repository. Let me go to my AI anytime, and I'll just explain that because it doesn't make any sense to rewrite that. So I'm just going to come inside the GitHub repository, and I'll just take this. I'll probably have this class, so I'll just copy this class and I'll explain. So let me just copy this and paste it over here. I forgot to copy C. Now if you see what we are doing in this class, I'll just explain. Okay, so if you see, we are using a base tool from Langchain. So you can see we have imported this langchain.tools.base. It's a base tool that we are leveraging from Langchain. That's called web page QA tool. So web page question answering tool. But this is very interesting. So our name of the function that we are defining, okay, it's called query web page. Okay, and then we have a description that basically a prompt. So better the prompt, better the responses, to be honest. Okay, so I have a very simple prompt here: browse a web page. This basically helps the tool to understand that why are we hitting this API endpoint, or why are we using submodel. Now just imagine if you are building a real-time chatbot powered by LLMs, and you want to retrieve weather details, you want to retrieve stock prices, you cannot get it from a pre-trained language model because the data has been trained till 2021, even in case of GPT, OpenAI models, right? So you need real-time data. For that you have to define functions, you have to do function calls, and for that you have to write the name and description separately for all of your subtasks, which is very interesting. And I think I will also post that video soon after this, that how we can write multiple functions and execute in the same chatbot. This is very interesting. So if you see this, right, name equal query underscore web page, and then we have description which says browse a web page and retrieve the information and answers relevant to the question. Please use bullet point to list the answers if there is any answers, like bigger answers like that, right? Now we are using this text splitter function that you can see, recursive character text splitter, failed default factory get text splitter, that's okay. And then we have a QA chain, that is base combined documents chain, okay, that we have imported on top. You can see it over here, the chain that we are using. And if you come down, we have a two function. That first function is without async, so we also have async. So if you are running it through an async function, maybe you have to use this function to do that, but I'm just going to explain this function here. So what I'm doing here is I have two input parameters. One is called URL and the other is called questions, right? So in URL, which is a string value, which is nothing but that investment banking URL that I was showing you, and then we have question. So question is nothing that the end user will ask on the Streamlit interface. So these two are the parameters that that function will expect from you. Okay. Then we have response, that you just request module to get the URL. Okay, and then we response.text, getting all the text from this website. Okay, all the text. So response.text will contain probably all the text. Okay, and then we just printing the page content to the track it in the terminal that we are getting the content or not, right? So you can ignore this. And then we have docs, a variable where we are looking at the page content, and the metadata, which is source URL. Now this is again very interesting, as I was saying, right? So suppose you have 5 different websites and you want to build a single system that leverages all the 5 websites. So this source is very important when you are retrieving the information, that your response has been generated from which source, which website, right? That's what this source does. And then we have text splitter and splitting the document, have an empty list that will append it later. You can see it over here. This is where we are appending it after passing through a QA chain, only looking at 4 to 5 pages. Okay, you can also increase that, and then we are just saving that, right? This is very important. We are returning the outputs, result docs, question is also being returned, and everything. So this is what this class does, guys. Okay, so we also have to write one more functions to utilize this class, and that's the important function. So let's write that function here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come and write, probably let's write one more function. I'm just going to call run language model, or LLM. So run LLM, and this will, as this class, we have this function called define run. It accepts 2 functions, 2 parameters, excuse me, URL and questions. We have to pass that, right? So let's pass that here. So I'm going to pass URL, and second will be query. So now here we have to use that LLM. So my LLM is nothing but the OpenAI thingy here. Okay, so I'm just going to do on an OpenAI. We have imported chat OpenAI because I'm using Langchain, right? So chat OpenAI, and I'm just going to pass a temperature only. You can look at other parameters like maximum number of tokens and penalties, and GPT 3.5, 612, which model is that works good for functions, right? And nowadays we also have options to leverage GPT-4, so you can also use that if you want. I'll just use temperature here, guys. I'll keep it 0.5. Temperature is to control the randomness and creativity of your response. Temperature plays a huge role. Okay, now we have LLM here, chat GPT. So this variable contains my language model, okay, large language model, and then we have query. So let's use that, guys. So query underscore website underscore tool. Let's have this variable. So now this variable, which is website tool, basically, or I think I'll show you here, okay, where it goes. Just me see query website tool. Let me just see what wrong I am doing. Okay, query website tool. Okay, now this, let's store this in query website tool variable. We call this class inside this. Okay, so we can just call this class. Okay, so let's call this web page QA tool. Now I'm calling this class inside this run LLM function. Okay, and now I'm just going to pass my QA chain, the question answering chain. This should work probably. So QA chain, and you can see it's suggesting me also, right? QA chain. And what our QA chain is, nothing but the load QA with the sources chain that we have on top. Let me see that also. So you can see it over here, load QA with the sources chain. So let's copy this. Okay, or not required, we'll just write it, load QA with the sources chain. You can see, and inside this we'll pass this LLM variable that contains that large language model. Okay, so we'll have to pass this inside the LLM, this chain, right? So let's pass this LLM. Now, so query website tool, now we have leveraged the class that we have written on top, and now let's define a variable called result, and this result should basically run the URL. So now this tool we have to run, right? So query website tool dot run, and inside this I'm gonna pass my URL and query. So this is what I'm doing, and then I will just return that result. So let's do that. I'm just going to return result here. Okay, now you can see. So now you can see that what we are doing in this case is, guys, that we have a variable called LLM, and that looks at that looks at a language model, a large language model in this case, which is GPT 3.5 that we are using. And then we use a variable called query website tool, and where we are using that class web page QA tool. Okay, so QA chain equal to load keyword with the sources chain LLM, and then result equal to query website tool dot run. So we are using this dot run, which takes two parameter, URL and query. Now what we're gonna do here, I'm just gonna write the Streamlit code here. So let's do that. So maybe we can use a markdown again. So st.markdown, and in the let's use the same markdown. I'll just copy it from top, not top here only, right? Sorry. So I'm just gonna use this markdown for now. So let's use this, Control C, and let's call it, let's have this green, and enter your URL. No, enter your questions. Maybe let me write enter your question. And okay, this looks nice. Okay, st.markdown, which one I copied, and then we have to enter your question, enter your URL, color green. Let me just close this, guys, here, and I'll just start this here, sorry. And this looks nice. So we have the markdown, and we should also have a text area where user can ask the question, right? So let's do that. So what I'm going to do here is, let's define your query. So your query equals st.text area. I'm going to use text underscore area in this case, and here we'll have our query, right? So let's do that. So st.text area and enter your query. This looks good. Enter your query, and again we'll check the st.text area query, the website, enter your query, and we'll use the same thing, right? So if let's have a button here. So if st.button something like get answer or something. Okay, get answer. Okay, get answer, and inside this I'm gonna just call the function that we have on top, right? So if st.button, and let's check that as well. So let's check the value. There should be a value inside it. So we have query greater than 0, and now within this I can call the function. So let's call that function st.info. Your query is plus your query. This looks good. Just a status message there, st.info, and after this let's have a final answer. So final answer is nothing but we'll use the function, right? So the function is run LLM. If you see here, this function. So let's use run underscore LLM, and inside this I'm just gonna pass input URL, and the other is your query. So let's do that, guys, and I'm gonna do st.write, and I'm just gonna call final answer here. Now we have written our code. Let me explain the code from top. We have imported all the libraries that are required. We are loading the APIs here. We have a function called get URL name that helps us get the URL name. We have a recursive character text splitter function which contains chunk size, overlap, etc. Then we have a class where we are defining the name and description. How should the prompt look like, and when this function should get executed. Okay, and you can see that it accepts two parameters, URL and a question, and we're using request module to basically crawl the text from the pages or the web pages that we have, response.text, and we are doing some pre-processing with the Langchain thingy here, text splitter, and creating a chain and just returning that. Okay, and then we're writing a run LLM function that uses GPT 3.5 as a large language model, and then we basically use the class and we use a chain there that's called load keyword with the sources. So it also gives you the source citation, sources underscore chain with the LLM, and just returning the result. Okay, maybe guys you can look at retrieval augmented generation as well. Okay, RAG, maybe some videos on RAG coming on very soon. People are talking about RAG nowadays like anything. Okay, and then you have a couple of markdown thingy for Streamlit and some Streamlit thingy, right? input and output that we are looking at, the file input and file output. So not file here, the values. Okay, now let's go back on here and let's do a rerun first and see what we get. I get a H2 style. Okay, let me see that. Most probably because well, we are not using this. Okay, we have to use unsafe allow, and then we'll get what we need. Okay, let me just do a rerun, and you can see enter your question. Now our UI looks very good. With Streamlit, few lines of code. You can do with the React or any other front end libraries or framework as well if you want. But I prefer Streamlit because it helps me save a lot of time. It's a tutorial video, right? I'm not building a product here. It's a tutorial video, so if you get some inspiration from this, you can build a similar application or a product at your workplace, right, with your team. So let's ask a question here, enter your question. Let me ask a question. Okay, so I'm just going to ask, okay, so let's ask this, suggest me a book that can provide intricate, because it's an investment banking that you can see, right? Let me show you the site that we have. It's an investment banking book suggestion site. Okay, so I'll just write some questions related to investment banking. Provide intricate aspects of investment banking with a technical outlook, something like this. Okay, so let me just get answer. When I click the get answer, the class will get executed, entire code will get executed, guys. So let's do that. So when I click on this, it shows me that my query. So this is my query. Your query is suggest me a book that can provide intricate aspects of investment banking with a technical outlook. And you can see it's running over here. What it does, it retrieves the information. So what it does is first has that response.text. If you come on the code here, right, you'll see this, right, response.text, and then it passing through a chains of, and then we are using this LLM chain, like load keyword with the sources chain. So if you come back, you will see your output text, and you can beautify this. Okay, just do an output text 0 to retrieve this. So it also getting that one book that can provide is this book, Investment Banking Valuation, Leveraged Buyouts and Mergers and Acquisition by Joshua Rosenbaum and Joshua Pearl. And this is the HTTPS link has also been given. So we're also getting the source. Now if you have multiple websites, then the sources are very important. Okay, this is called source citation, to find out that if this response that you are getting, you can validate that if it's coming from your knowledge base or the data that you have fed to the system. Okay, so if you see it over here, let's see where if we have that book called is Investment Banking Valuation and something Merger Acquisition. Where is that book? I don't know why I can't find that book. Let me read it. Here is the first book is itself. Okay, Investment Banking Valuation, Leveraged Buyouts and Mergers and Acquisitions. So you can see that, right? So let's ask one more question here. I'm just going to ask some very simple question. Okay, so which book I can refer to? I can refer if I have to learn, if I have to learn stock valuations with financial modeling, something like this. Okay, now this is my second question. If I'm asking this question, if I have to retrieve this information, okay, modeling which book I can refer to. Okay, now let's get answers. Now when I click on get answers, what it does, you can see it's running. Your query is which book I can refer if I have to learn stock valuations. Now if you want to use financial modeling technique, to learn stock valuations, which book you should basically refer to. I mean, you can see the response, this financial modeling and valuation, okay, or private equity or something like that. Okay, from this source. So you can see the source, wallstreetmojo.com. Okay, so this is a very simple example that how you can retrieve information from the website. You can chat with website. You can create an interactive chatbot by using conversational memory buffer, some memory state or something to integrate. I have a lot of videos on how to create chat with data chatbot that can be chat with PDF, doc, CSV, etc. You can go through my YouTube channel or GitHub repository to find out. But this is what I wanted to create, guys, in this video, just to develop a very simple Streamlit app that will have everything on the uh, end user interface. So you can see the enter the URL, you can come here and use this as a template or a boilerplate where you can test out the capabilities of LLMs to basically retrieve the information and inference to generate some kind of responses. You can see it over here, right? Enter your query. I hope you like that video. If you like the video, okay, please hit the like icon, for that video. And I'll also probably uh, create a video of combining multiple functions, because right now in this you can only see a single function which can have a web crawler and give it to an LLM in backend to retrieve responses. But what we have to fetch stock prices, connect to a database and retrieve information, also about some recipes and weather details, flight booking, etc., etc. How, if you have smaller functions and you want to integrate that together, that's where mechanisms like Langchain Tools and OpenAI functions comes in play. Okay, so the that's all. Okay, I hope uh, you understood that how it works, right? So the code will be available on the GitHub repository. Okay, you can just go and get the code, download it, try it out yourself, and let me know your feedback and thoughts on this video. Okay, that if you like the video, if you like the content that I'm creating, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't subscribed the channel yet, and do share the videos and the channel to your friends and to peer. Okay, that's all for today video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.